tonight because I haven't been able to come. Wednesdays are terrible for me. I'm in the junior league, and my Coach for Kids committee that I was handed mid-year this last year met on Wednesday night, so I couldn't change it. And we had church Wednesday night, so I couldn't do one more thing. So I greatly appreciate Trudy coming, and she is our PTO Wayside Board liaison, so I get notes from her, and the board gets notes every month. So I'm grateful for her notes and her time and attention here. I'm also grateful for all of you. I have served on boards forever. I understand the commitment, I understand the training and the mindset. You're laying in bed at night and it just keeps going in your head. I understand you're here for the kids, and I understand that this is a huge priority, and the time and effort and energy it takes to be here and support this school in the way you're supporting it, and support all of the schools in the way you're supporting it. So I really do appreciate that, and I think everybody does. We understand that it's a hard job, and there's a lot involved, and we really do appreciate your commitment. I want to start by saying that my children have been involved in this school their whole elementary lives. My rising fifth grader had Miss Gamer, Miss Chavez for the first teacher there, and Grace had Miss Gamer, who's now Mrs. Gamer. She was Mrs. O'Neill, Miss O'Neill. They're happy, they're healthy, they're thriving, have good commitment, good relationships with other children. They are happy with their commitments to the student council and other commitments at school. They are super, super, duper, duper happy, and that is my goal for them in life. So all this minutia I'm going to talk about, to me as a parent in the world, is gravy. I literally don't care, because we've solved all the problems, because my children are happy and healthy and safe and feel secure there and learn a lot and have teachers that adore them and love them. We've met our goal. As a parent, you've totally met my goal, and I'm totally satisfied and happy. My strategic...
However.
Well, no, period. And I can walk away, and that can be the end of it. Seriously, truthfully. But my project management, strategic-minded brain has seen things on notes and been here at the last board meeting and just seen that you guys are operating so efficiently at a very high level that sometimes you need just a touch of a spotlight from the individual campuses to know better and kind of have a connection for what that looks like and what's important at those campus level decisions. So that's what I'm here for tonight. It should just give you a little bit of snippet, show you what we're doing in PTO, show you some priorities that we aligned at the end of the year, which are just very, very initial basic, and we'll talk about that. I just wanted to give you that sort of heads up. My background at the school was I came in 5 years ago. Christy Barton was our PTO president, and I said, introduce me to your fundraising committee. How can I get involved? And they kind of looked at me with their head cocked to the side and said, what? So I then said, well, I'll do it. So we started doing a lot of things at the school as far as fundraising, but primarily just doing silent auctions. I was the playground chair, and we did a capital campaign to fund the first section of the playground. I've now handed all that off to Steve Palmgren. But that's what they were primarily related for. PTO as a whole, fundraising, and for the playground specifically. And so when I came into this position at the end of last year, we were right in the middle of putting in the third phase of the playground. So I stayed on and had that huge conflict of interest as far as playground chair and PTO president for about 2 months until we could get that in the ground, and then stepped away from that. But that's my little background. So at the end of the year, we had a parent that came to me, and it was Memorial Day weekend, and the only reason I remember this is because she was rattling off on a text things that were irritating her about the school. Little things, not huge things, but just things that we could easily do better. And I think that was the last night that David Letterman was on the air. So I said, give me your top 10. So she did. And then I went to the parents and teachers and some of the other folks on campus. I actually went to 3 classrooms. I thought that was very interesting. I had Miss McKeon's second grade class. Miss McKeon had introduced me as the PTO president and talked about student government and how important that was, and a charter school and all of that, and that their voice was heard through their parents, but yada yada. In about 5 minutes time, not even, 3 minutes time, they rattled off 4 priorities. Gym floor, recycling, playground, and our relationship with our neighbors. These were second graders. I thought that was very impressive that they were that in tune with our school and understood what our priorities were. So I've incorporated all that with all the parent and teacher teacher stuff, and we came up with this list. This is a super raw list that combines a lot of things. This list has not gone before the PTO board collectively. This has not gone before Ms. Drummond collectively at all. This is just our running list. Communication should really be at the top of this list, and I think I had it on a list and it didn't come back.
So is this in any particular order, or
it is in a very general sense. This may jump around in different order, but for all intents and purposes, it's just a list for now, because it really hasn't gone before anybody. This is just a compilation of the input I received from all the different sources. So number one, it should have been communication. It's not. Communication, I thought I put that on it. Oh no, it was number 3. There we go, it is on there. Okay. So let's start at number 1, counselor. We've got to have counselors on campus. It is so important to have somebody, social work students, counselor a couple days a week. Right now we have Dr. Hoyle, the psychiatrist that comes in and does ARDs and IEPs. He's just not available to do other things on the campus. If we have a death or an illness or, God forbid, something sort of traumatic happens, there's no mechanism in place to have that be supported or provide something for that. That is uber important, and I could list off 1,000 reasons and get you case studies if you need them.
What has happened when there's been incidents happen on campus?
The principals handle it.
Have we brought anybody in?
So we've done some referrals out to the Child Guidance Center, but Dr. Hoyle basically acts as our kind of like triage counselor, which is in his capacity, but that's not his full-time permanent role. We have a new person who's joining at the district level, who's going to be the director of social emotional learning. He is a certified counselor, and he's going to be available across all campuses. And social worker.
Oh, great. What's his
name? So he's
name?
going to be available.
Wonderful. Again,
For
has that gone before anyway?
But it's going to be a shared resource, Chris. It won't be designated just for one campus.
Right, but that would be if there was an incident that
Right.
happened and somebody would need to go out to the campus, that would be in this
Also
person's
provide,
role.
just crisis support for families as well. So it may not be a campus crisis, but for families.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm really happy about that. Nurse. We had a child at the end of the year who was having an asthma attack. I was sitting next to her. Rosa and Diana were calling every person they could possibly think of that knew where their family was. I was this close to calling an ambulance or literally putting her in my car and taking her to the ER. That is just not a good idea. We've got to do better than that, and I understand that it's a challenge. But either more education for the people that are there all the time, or a nurse is just more really important. We don't want something traumatic to happen and not have somebody cared for. We had somebody bleeding on the playground, and the only thing she had to put against the wound were cotton balls. Her supply thing wasn't filled up. So of course I'm going to go run to somewhere and fill that up for her with PTO funds. But again, that's a really big priority. We want to make sure that that's handled.
Can I interrupt you for a second, Linda?
You can interrupt me all day long.
Just in the interest of time, because I think
I'm not going to do that for everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is because we could probably spend a lot of time in discussing the merits of every single one.
No, I wasn't going to do that for and some of them are self-explanatory.
Some of them are.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if there was anything that you wanted to specifically highlight for us, or if there's any, as we're looking through this, if any of the board members have questions. No, but we can ask questions about it, Teresa. We're not taking action on anything, but if there's anything
clarifying
that people
questions,
want
I'm happy to do that.
clarification on, we've had that discussion before when we've had public input. I'm not asking for anybody to take any action, but if there's something on here that people want more information on, I think that's reasonable to do.
Yeah, we should engage in a discussion, but I'm comfortable with clarifying questions. As long as it's limited and inside the scope of the public input.
Right.
Technically speaking, we should not do any at all, but our practice has been.
We've done that before, so I don't want to change our practice. So then let me ask you, Belinda, on this. Are there any other particular items on this that might not be quite as self-explanatory that you want to provide additional information?
I meant to, after supplies, just mention that at the end of the year, all of the requests I received from teachers were class set book related or level library related. my phone is ringing. I'm sorry, I didn't turn that off. It's a nice little jingle. So I just think that's interesting that across all of EPA and through our librarian coming into I guess that was our April PTO meeting, she presented about a level library. Nobody was asking for, I'm sorry, that's pretty close. Nobody was asking for iPads, nobody was asking for, you know, like hard curriculum, they were asking for class sets of books in a level library. So I think that's interesting, and if we could do a better job of inventorying what we have on campus or inventorying what we have campus-wide so they could share maybe, that might be a way to save costs. But that's the only one that wasn't spelled out. So I'm happy to clarify anything on anything else. The only other things I wanted to present was our PTO org chart, if you want to know what our committees look like. And then if you don't know what something is, the definitions are on this other form, which is here. I did make a lot of copies of it, but.
That's actually
That is the org chart, so you know who reports to who. And on the
Got it.
second page of that, there's all the definitions of what those committees are. It's not self-explanatory, yes ma'am.
So when we're looking at 8 and 9, the music
Yep.
program and art program, we're talking about having 2 separate programs rather than just like a fine arts program.
No,
correct?
I don't think we're opposed to that.
Okay.
We just, it's very, 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 very important to the parents. If you start talking collectively, you will hear that come up in the first 5 minutes. And again, if PTO needed to contribute funds and we needed to do a fundraiser specifically to pay for somebody to do some of these programs, I mean, we're not opposed to that. It's just, it's really important. And that's why it made the top 10 for sure. Oh, sorry.
I just had one
Yes, sir.
clarification on the no electronics policy. Could you elaborate on that one?
Yes, sir. On days when the children are being rewarded for something, and it changes. For maybe they won a box top party, maybe maybe it's an end of year thing, maybe they've gotten their Eagle Award or Eagle, what are they called? Soaring Eagle for good behavior. They get like a 20-minute class party, and sometimes the teacher allows them to bring electronics from home. The problem is that there's no good way for a child to manage an electronic device. So they're bringing potentially a $400 thing to school, and it could be hurt or broken, or some kid could accidentally knock it off the desk, or it's just not, it doesn't work. Like it in theory sounds really like a great idea for a reward, but in actuality and logistically, it just doesn't work.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And just, I'm not here to just stand and complain. I really am solution oriented, so I'd love to work together on this, and if we need to get an agenda item so we can have some of that give and take, I would invite all of you to come to PTO events and meetings. We're very welcoming and open, and really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other clarifying questions on this list? Can we make a request as a follow-up from what you were just saying, Belinda, in terms of PTO activities, not just for EPA, but for real and for SciTech, and it's something that we've talked about before, would be to have kind of a calendar of the events that are happening
Sure.
on the different campuses, so that we as board members
We'd really appreciate that. That would be great.
Yeah, and that's something actually that we've been talking about and we're gonna be having
It's
for
on
you
the
guys.
principal's checklist to complete your first semester.
There you go.
Would we be allowed to request some further detail on, I don't know if this is something that we should know at the board level, I don't know it, the specifics of how each one of these activities are being conducted right now? Would we want that to come from the CMO, or would we look to the PTO to provide some?
I don't have answers for a lot of the way that some of this is being.
'Cause I really don't know, I have no idea,
Yeah, so
Well, I know there are plans in
The
place
shade
for
on
like
the-
art
the shade
and
on
music
the
for next year. I don't know what that plan
Yeah.
is, but these are just priorities for things that are important to us, and I'm happy to
Ms.
bring anything
Jones,
else.
the principal is meeting
Sure.
with you guys coming up, and so she'll be able to talk more in detail with this, about each of those things, and then things we have in place that she can discuss, and then things that we don't have in place that we can put on our strategic planning list. So if you get the principal level, that would be really helpful. We can also invite, if we ever wanna have like a bigger discussion about it with our board, I think inviting our principals in, when it's their campus we're discussing would be really helpful.
I think we did at the beginning of the school year last year, as we had the
we had a
principals.
rotation. I basically
Yeah.
had a principal in attendance every 3 months, so that like each campus, so that now basically like they would get on a 3-month rotation because there's 3 principals. and so it would be on a 4-month rotation now. And so that's the way we did it this last cycle. And I know that we didn't always necessarily engage them, but they were here.
This is also really helpful in terms of changes that we're having at the CMO or even on the campuses, and really thinking about how we target what we're communicating and when we're communicating it. So this is really helpful to know this is things people have questions about,
Sure.
so we can make sure we're responding to those.
Yeah, and my goal is to have this present and up. You know, once we get it really hard, have it up on the wall and literally come back to it and say, is this a priority? Where does this fall? Have we come up with something we haven't addressed? I mean, strategically plan in that way. So.
And we're doing the same thing, I mean, we also.
No, I know you are. I know you are.
We spent some time here this weekend coming up with some some areas of focus that we, to the point, I mean, everybody, whether they're staff, or whether they're volunteer, everybody's so busy that we have to be efficient with our time, like you mentioned. So that is gonna be our checklist at the end of the day, is to make sure that all of our efforts are channeled into our 5 areas of focus that we talked about, we're covering
Right.
over the course of the year.
And I'd love to know what your 5 areas of focus are.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
And we'll be publishing those in July because they're still in draft format.
Sure.
But I think, you know, I think it's helpful for us, as a board, especially those of us who don't have a connection to one of the campuses for another reason, to know what the, you know, kind of what's important to the different campuses. And so we appreciate the time that you took in certainly soliciting this information, and then presenting it to us, so we have that take on it. So,
Absolutely.
thank you.
One more cuteness, just because it's cute. Sarah did this for when they did the Keith Hearing thing a couple years ago with Coach Gully when he was in charge of art. So I put it on a thank you note, and this was our gratitude that we do. And we have tons if you'd like some to share.